What is going on, guys? I'm Consumer Tech Review, and today I'm going to be doing the modding guide for the Royal Kludge RK61. If at any point during the video you want to check out any of the materials I'm going to be using for modding this keyboard, you can check it out right over there and see all of the products that I use in this video. But let's jump into all of the materials before we start modding. All right, so number one, you're going to need your RK61. This one is the RGB wired version that is fully hot swappable with 3 and 5 pin switches. Now you don't have to use all of the stuff I'm going to use in this video, and you can absolutely use different versions of it. Then for switches, I'm using the TECSEE carat switches. These are a linear switch. I'm using an Akko custom aviator coiled cable. I'm then using a PCB and plate dampener. This is just made of felt. It's about 10 or 11 bucks, but I think it's worth it for it to be pre-cut. Just makes it a little bit easier. For keycaps, I'm again using some Akko. These are cherry profile Macaw colorway. I think these are really cool keycaps, and I really like them for the price, around 55 or 60 bucks. So definitely mid-grade keycaps, but they're really nice, and I think they're a really great value. I'm then not using the stock stabilizers, and I'm swapping them out for DUROCK stabilizers, and these are plate mounted, not PCB mounted screw-ins, because this one uses plate mounted stabilizers. All right, we're then gonna need some tape. Painter's tape will work. Medical tape, this is just for a Holy mod and some other stabilizer mods. Then you're gonna need some lube. I use 205 grade 0, a paintbrush, some dielectric grease, a screwdriver. You don't need anything fancy here. A switch opener, and this is only if you're gonna be lubing your switches. A keycap slash switch puller, a switch puller if you want a nicer one, some tweezers. I'm using some angled ones, micro cutters or plastic cutters. This little cool tool for lubing. Again, you're not really gonna need this if you're not lubing your switches. A basic pair of scissors and an X-Acto knife, and just a piece of foam. This is just $1 or $2. All right, with all those materials, let's get to modding. Getting right into it, the first thing you're gonna do is just go ahead and remove all of these keycaps. All right, now that we have all of the keycaps off of there, we're gonna go right ahead and just take off all of those switches. Go ahead and take your switch puller either on this or on this. You're just gonna go in from the top, push in a little bit, and just pull up, and they come up really easily and nicely. And do that for all of them. Now that we have all of those switches off of the board, we're gonna flip this around and unscrew these 4 holes right there. Take your screwdriver and just go in there and just unscrew those nicely. Make sure to put these screws aside because we are obviously gonna have to reuse these when we put the board back together. After that's all unscrewed, let's take the PCB out, and we're just going to lift up on the plate. Be careful not to hurt anything. And there we got our PCB and our plate out nicely, just like that. And you have a totally, basically just a plain board. You have this plastic shell, and then you have the PCB and the plate, and that's pretty much it. So this is a really easy thing to mod, well, because they don't give you much in the board. It's just the board itself with a hot swappable PCB. So let's get to it. All right, so take your case and set it aside, and then we're gonna get to the back of the PCB. Get your screwdriver again, and there's gonna be a couple screws on the back of your PCB, and we're just gonna unscrew all of them. Make sure to separate these from the case screws because you don't wanna get those mixed up. Although they look to be exactly the same. However, I'm not exactly sure, so let's just keep them separated for now. After you've unscrewed a total of 5 screws, the PCB will come off nice and easy like that. Make sure to set this aside. And then what we're gonna do is get to our stabilizers up here, and we're going to remove these. Now you see there's a little clip right here at the top. You're gonna press that clip in, and then you're just gonna pull up, and it'll come up just like that. You do that for both sides of your stabilizers, and then you just pull them out. And that's how you get your stabilizers out. Now again, if you are using your stabilizers, you can do the exact same modding process I'm gonna do to the DUROCK ones, but just make sure to keep your stock stabilizers. So just go ahead and take all of those out. It is nice that these come pre-lubed. However, they still don't sound the best, and we could definitely mod them and make them sound better, and it's totally fine for you to use your stock ones, but we're gonna be using DUROCK ones. All right, then after that's done, we're gonna grab our PCB and plate silencer right here. We're gonna flip our plate upside down, and then basically we're gonna see how well this thing will fit on our PCB. Obviously, we are gonna have to cut for some holes and screw holes right there, and in some places. That's not a big deal though. So take your scissors or your X-Acto knife, probably both, and just go ahead and cut this so it matches up perfectly. All right, as you can see, I got that fully lined up and pretty much perfect. So what we're gonna do is then we're gonna take our PCB back here again, and we're gonna attach it back onto our plate. So line up your felt, make sure it's all lined up perfectly. After it is, we're just gonna drop our PCB onto there nice and gently. Take those screws we used before, and then just screw your PCB back in. Now don't screw it in all the way. We're just gonna tighten them down just a little bit. We're gonna adjust the felt on the front, and then once it's perfect, we're gonna fully tighten it. All right, now that that's all done and all tightened up, we're gonna move on to our stabilizers and modding our stabilizers. So I'm using these DUROCK ones right here. We're just gonna take these out and dump them out. All right, so going over each of the different parts, we have our bars right here. We then have our stems and we have the housing. So we're gonna separate those all into their own little categories. However, let me show you how to disassemble your stock stabilizers if that's what you're using. This is the stabilizer right here. All you're gonna do is take it if it's facing up, and you're just going to turn that wire up. You'll hear a little click, and then you're gonna pull it out, and then basically everything will fall out just like that. So that's all you have to do if you're using your stock stabilizers, which is totally fine. The first thing we're gonna do to mod these is we're gonna grab our plastic cutters right here. We're gonna take our stem, and on the bottom there are 4 little legs right here, but 2 of them protrude and kind of act like springs. You can see that's the one right there, and then if you flip it over, that one also protrudes. You can see that they actually protrude past the base. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our plastic cutters right here, and we're gonna cut it so that it perfectly flattens the base. So you don't just wanna cut it off like this, you wanna cut it off so it keeps the bottom completely flat. And then do that again for the other leg. And so now it should look like this with the bottom being completely flat. And just repeat that for all of them. Now that we have everything clipped, we're gonna move on to doing the Holy mod. What you're gonna need for this is your tweezers and your medical tape, as well as that switch stem. All right, now on the stem, there is 2 holes on one side, and then if you turn this around, there is 1 hole with kind of a ramp on the other side. What we're gonna do is be cutting our medical tape of the width of this hole right here. Take your tape, take your scissors, and then we are just trying to cut the width of what that hole would be. Take that, and then put that piece of tape on your tweezer just like that. Get your stabilizer stem, and then we're gonna go in from the slanted hole with one side. So we're gonna turn this around with the sticky part facing the top of the stem. We're then gonna push it through the hole and kind of get it off of that tweezer. Then we're gonna pull it so that it's flush with this side, just like that. And then we're gonna kind of press it down and stick it onto your stabilizer. And then you're gonna go over to the other side with 2 holes, and then you are gonna press it down on that flat part right there. So at this point, you should have it on the slanted part, as well as through that bottom hole right there. Then you're gonna take your scissors, and you're gonna cut off with a little bit left over. So just about like that. After you do that, on the side, again with 2 holes, we're then going to bend this part over, bend that little flap over into the top hole on the side with 2 holes, and you're gonna stick that to the top right there. That's just to make sure that it doesn't move while it's on your keyboard stabilizer. Rinse and repeat that for all of them. Then let's move on to the lubing portion. Okay, so grab your lube, open her up, grab your paintbrush, and if you have a stem holder, you can grab that as well. First, we're gonna start with the stem housing. You're gonna grab a little bit of that lube on your paintbrush right there, and then we're gonna go on the left and the right sides, and we're gonna kind of coat it, but you don't want it to be a whitish color. You just want it to be a little bit of sheen. So you're just gonna do that on the left and the right side. All right, now that that's done, grab your stem, and then all we're gonna do is just put a little bit of lube on the left wall and the right wall. And again, you don't want this to be a whitish color, you just want it to be a little bit of a sheen. After that's all evenly coated, take that and put it into your switch housing that has been lubed. Now make sure that in the opening, as you can see, this is the opening right here. You want your stem to be on the side with 2 holes in that opening. And then put those together just like that. Continuing on, grab your bar and your dielectric grease. Open up your dielectric grease. And then this part is pretty simple. All you're gonna do is take your little bar and put it into your dielectric grease. Now you do wanna do this more than just that section. You wanna actually go a little bit past it because there is contact points there, just like that. Then what you're gonna do, take your housing and stem, and you're gonna go in at a 90-degree angle into the front of the stem, and you're gonna go into that bottom hole at a 90-degree angle, push it in. This will be a little bit harder because of the Holy mod. So you're gonna press it in, and then you're gonna turn it at a 90-degree angle, and snap it right in. And then just rinse and repeat that for both sides. All right, now that all the stabilizers are lubed and put together, we're not quite done with the stabilizers just yet. We're gonna take our PCB and plate right here, and then we're gonna take our medical tape. And the idea here is to cut out little squares or rectangles that are gonna sit right where those stabilizers actually hit your PCB. So all in these little spaces right here, there's gonna be 10 of them total. So you're gonna cut those out kind of the size of this on your medical tape. So take your tape out just like this, and then cut out a nice little rectangle. grab your tweezers, and then we're gonna grab our PCB and the plate, and then we're just going to kind of insert it under the bottom right here and just set it down where that would be and kind of move it into place. When finished, it should look something like this. Now after that, you're gonna take another brush right here and your dielectric grease, and you're just gonna dab a little bit onto that brush and then kind of dab it evenly across the entirety of that little pad right there. And then repeat that for all of them, and then we're gonna put the stabilizers back in. All right, now that we have all of that done, let's put our stabilizers in the board. All we're gonna do is put our stabilizers in our board and then snap them in. All right, now that those are all in, I will say it's a little bit tight with the Durocks in this plate, and some of them don't even snap in very well just because they're so tight in there, but I wouldn't say it's that big of a problem at all, and I would definitely still go with the Durocks if you want a little bit of an upgrade with your stabilizer. But let's move on to the case now and grab your foam. Today we're gonna be using just some pretty thin, I think this is 1/8 inch or 1/16 inch actually, EVA foam, and all we're gonna do is you could put this on the table and kind of measure it out, but I'm just gonna kind of go by hand, probably right there, and then about right there. Now the pro to using something like EVA foam is that it's incredibly easy to work with, whereas something like I've used in other videos, butyl rubber is much better at sound dampening, but it is a ton more time to work with. So if you do want an easier process, go with something like foam or felt. Is probably a little bit harder, but this stuff is super easy. Now we can just set this in the case. Now we might actually use 2 layers of foam. First, what you can see is there's 4 little screws right here, and then we have this bar in the middle. Now I'm actually just gonna cut this on the actual board. So put it in there. I'm gonna find that screw hole and just kind of cut across it. And with this foam, we should be able to just kind of just push it down like that. Now, I'm not sure if we're gonna have to cut across this bar, so I'm actually gonna set it in there to see, and it looks like I'm going to have to. So all I'm gonna do is just cut across that little bar right there, and then kind of push everything down in there. The important thing is that this doesn't need to look pretty, but that is pretty good, I would say. All right, so now that you have it all like that, I think we are gonna go with 1 layer of foam on this build. Let's set the plate and the PCB back into that board, and then we're gonna flip this over, kind of holding it, put those screws in those screw holes, grab your screwdriver, and we're gonna start screwing this in. All right, and now that we have that, that's all nice and much better sounding than before. Let's lay this down. Again, instead of the foam, you could have used felt, or you could use butyl rubber, or a bunch of different things, but I just used that because it's fairly easy to work with, and I thought this build should be that. With only 4 screws on the back, this is quite an easy keyboard to mod. Now, one thing that you do want to check is if your USB-C does match up perfectly, as you might not have had your board screwed down enough, so do make sure to check that. All right, now right away, let's get our switches. These are the TECSEE carrot switches. Now I've already lubed all of these over here, but I'm gonna show you how to lube your switches really, really quickly. First, you're gonna need a switch opener, and this is not a Kale, this is an MX style opener. You're just gonna place it on that switch opener, press down gently, and then pull your switch apart. Now there's gonna be the stem right here, the top housing, the spring, and then the bottom housing. Now with this specific switch, it actually comes with a 2-stage spring right here, which I actually swapped out, which is a lighter spring than this one. I just prefer this, so let's go over how to lube it very, very quickly. First, what you're gonna do is get the stem, put a little bit of lube on one side, and then the other side, put some on the front, and then those sides, and kind of just blend it all together. Now you can do this as scientifically as you want or not. The thing that you wanna do is just make sure that you have good consistency. After you have that done, we're gonna flip this over and we're gonna kind of swirl around the bottom right there. All right, now set that down, grab your bottom housing right here, and then we're gonna put a little dab on the left side and then some on the right rails right there. And we're gonna feather that in, make sure that you don't have any white spots. You don't want that in this. Once that's all feathered out, I do a little ring around there for the spring. And then we're gonna do these 2 little leaves right here, just like that. Then after that, you're gonna get your spring. And I'm gonna be quite generous with this. You're just gonna go around the base. This is okay if it's not feathered in. So you're gonna go around the outside as well as the inside. This will just get rid of any unnecessary ping. After you have that done, get your housing, put the spring in there, get your stem, place it on the spring, then get your top housing and just kind of put everything back together. And then that is how you lube a mechanical switch super fast. After you have all of your switches lubed, you just put them right in there into your PCB. Now these are 5-pin switches, and they obviously work because the RK61 is hot swappable with 3 and 5-pin switches. So go ahead and just put them all in there. Now we got all of those switches on the board. I just want to say the carrot switches on the RK61, It just looks really cool. All right, now right away, we're gonna grab our keycaps. This is where it gets really exciting. You get to the end of the build. This was a pretty easy and simple, simplistic, but it's gonna be a really nice sounding build. Now these keycaps are just gonna look awesome. Now, I do wanna say you could have taken your case and painted it, although I didn't want to, so you definitely could have done that though. All right, so let's just start taking these keycaps and putting it on the board. Now we got all of these keycaps on, but we are not done yet. Let's get our matching Akko coiled cable out that matches with the Macaw colorway. A very affordable cable and keycaps, and it's gonna look really cool with this build. And there is the Royal Kludge RK61 fully complete. Let's get a sound test. Here's the before first. Wow, guys, I am truly really impressed. I think the lubed carrot switches with the dual stage springs actually feel really good, and they really come out when they're lubed. And honestly, I think the carrots are a pretty good switch option for the price point. Let's get a little bit more typing. It's just too good. But yeah, again, if you wanna check out any of the stuff that I used to mod this, you can check it out over in this corner right here. Go check it out there. And I have two other videos. I have a modding guide for the TechWare Phantom 87 and the Red Dragon K552, and they will be somewhere right here, right now. But this is a consumer tech review, and I'll see you guys in the next video.